Today, we're going to trace the long, complex, and often turbulent history of how Palestinian identity was formed. It's a story that stretches back thousands of years, shaped by empires, migrations, and modern conflict. And it all really starts with one big question.
So how is a national identity born? Well, for Palestinians, that answer isn't simple at all. It's found in a history that's layered, really complex, and deeply, deeply connected to a specific piece of land. Let's see how that story unfolds.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We'll start with the ancient peoples who first lived on the land, then we'll see the rise of a unifying Arab culture. From there, we'll watch a modern national identity take shape, understand the trauma of displacement, and finally, explore the ongoing struggle for a state.
Okay, let's dive right into our first chapter, the ancient peoples. This is all about establishing the region as an ancient crossroads, a place where so many different groups have passed through and left their mark over the centuries.
So, if you look way back, the story of this land is really a story of different peoples coming and going. During the Bronze Age, you had Canaanite groups living there. Then, around the 12th century BCE, the Philistines arrived and settled along the southern coast. Fast forward a few centuries, and the Romans, after crushing a local revolt, actually renamed the whole province Syria Palestina, a name that, as you can imagine, would stick around.
And what's really fascinating here is where the Philistines likely came from. Our source material points to evidence linking them to Aegean migrants, basically seafaring people from the areas of modern-day Greece and Turkey. It just shows you this region has always been a crossroads for different cultures.
Okay, so what does this all mean? Well, the bottom line is this, and the source is very clear about it. You can't just draw a straight line from any one of these ancient groups directly to modern Palestinians or Israelis. It's just not that simple. These modern identities are way more complex, built from all these different layers of history, culture, and experience.
All of that ancient history really sets the stage for our next major shift, the rise of Arab culture. This was a huge transformation in the 7th century that would basically define the region's character for more than 1,000 years.
This was the real game changer. After the Arab conquests, the people who were already living there, a mix of folks speaking Aramaic, Greek, you name it, they gradually began to adopt the Arabic language and culture. And over generations, this created a distinct, shared Arabic-speaking identity right across the land.
Now let's jump forward to the long era of the Ottoman Empire. Back then, the idea of a national identity like we have today, well, that just wasn't really a thing. Your identity was much more local. It was all about your village, your family clan, your religion, and what specific part of the country you were from, like Nablus or Jerusalem.
Okay, so that brings us right up to the modern era, where all those local identities started to blend into something new. This section is all about how a specific, political, Palestinian national consciousness really began to form in the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
So what kicked all this off? Well, it wasn't just one thing. On one hand, Ottoman reforms and European influence were changing society, but the really critical factor was a big increase in Jewish immigration, part of the Zionist movement, which aimed to create a Jewish homeland. This created new tensions over land, and in response, local Arab leaders started to organize together, and out of that, a modern Palestinian identity began to crystallize.
And this whole process, it went into overdrive after World War I, when the British took control of the area. Palestinian Arab leaders really came together to oppose the British Balfour Declaration, which supported a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, and the waves of Jewish immigration that followed. That shared political fight became a really powerful unifying force.
Now, in this struggle against British rule, some factions started looking for powerful allies wherever they could find them. This led the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, a prominent leader named Haj Amin al-Husseini, to meet with Adolf Hitler in 1941. He was seeking German support against both the British and the Zionist movement.
And this is a really important piece of context from our source material, so let's be clear about it. The Mufti's actions represented the strategy of one specific political faction. The source emphasizes that the wider Palestinian population did not collaborate with Nazi Germany. It's a very complex and controversial part of this history, but it's important to understand it in its proper context.
Okay, we're now coming to what is arguably the single most defining event in modern Palestinian history. It's an event that would completely reshape their identity around a shared experience of trauma and loss, the 1948 Nakba.
So how did we get here?
Well, the stage was set back in 1947. The brand new United Nations came up with a radical plan to partition the land into separate Arab and Jewish states. Jewish leaders accepted the plan, but Palestinian Arab leaders and the neighboring Arab countries rejected it. And that rejection led directly to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War.
And the human cost of that war? Well, for the Palestinians, it was catastrophic. Around 700,000 Palestinian Arabs were displaced from their homes. They became refugees in neighboring countries and even within the borders of the new state of Israel. That number is just staggering.
And this event came to be known as the Nakba. It's the Arabic word for catastrophe. The Nakba isn't just a historical date. It became the very foundation of modern Palestinian identity. It's a collective memory of loss, of displacement, and the dream of one day returning home.
So after 1948, the picture on the ground completely changed. What was left of Palestinian territory was split up, the West Bank was controlled by Jordan, and Gaza was run by Egypt. In the massive refugee camps that sprung up, a powerful new identity was forged, one centered on that shared loss. And this eventually led to the creation of the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, in 1964, to speak for all the scattered Palestinian people.
And all of that brings us to our final chapter, the struggle for a state. This covers the period from 1967 all the way to today, a time defined by occupation, resistance, and that constant, ongoing aspiration for nationhood. So, the last half-century or so has been defined by a few really pivotal moments. In the 1967 war, Israel captured the West Bank and Gaza, beginning a long military occupation. Then in 1987, the First Intifada, a massive popular uprising, really strengthened that national identity on the ground. The 1993 Oslo Accords created the Palestinian Authority for limited self-rule. But then, a major split happened in 2007, when Hamas took control of Gaza, creating the deep political division we still see today.
You know, this table does a great job of just summing up the whole journey we've been on. You can really see that evolution, from all those diverse ancient groups to a more unified Arabic-speaking culture, then to the birth of a political national identity during the Mandate, and finally to the modern Palestinian nationalism we see today, shaped by the Nakba, occupation, and the fight for a state. And that brings us to today, where the struggle is really defined by a handful of core, incredibly difficult issues. These are the huge obstacles to any lasting peace. What to do about the final borders, the fate of Palestinian refugees, Israeli settlements, security for both sides, and of course, the deeply sensitive future of Jerusalem.
So when you step back and look at it all, what you see is an identity forged over thousands of years by ancient migrations, huge cultural shifts, political struggle, profound loss, and an unbreakable national aspiration. The history is complicated for sure, but it gets us to where we are now. And the final question, the one history hasn't answered yet, is what will its next chapter be?